Have you ever watched in amazement as someone close to you has gone through some life-shattering event but kept themselves cool, calm, collected, composed, and just standing with grace in a horrible situation? Well, I for one have seen that happen, and I've stood on the sidelines and wondered how the hell is this person holding it all together. Today we're going to learn how to capture that for ourselves with When Things Fall Apart by Pema, Chördön. Let's see what it's all about, hey? How are we all doing, guys? I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to talk about this one right here, When Things Fall Apart by Pema, Chördön. Now I hope I'm really actually pronouncing that right, because the accents on both of those O's are really tripping me up, to be quite honest. So if I'm saying that wrong, I'm really sorry, Pema, but your book is great. It is well worth a read as we find ourselves in exceedingly troubling times. Okay guys, so in When Things Fall Apart, Pema Chördön explores how to stay composed during what could be some of the worst times of your life. And she comes at it from a place of Buddhist wisdom. So she studied meditation, mainly mindfulness meditation, and the practices that are taught within the structure of the religion of Buddhism. Now, I myself don't know a great deal about the faith, but comparatively to the Abrahamic religions, it's kind of a bit more, I'm driven to say atheistic, as most people would probably see, or kind of they would kind of conceptualize the Buddha as a type of deity, and he's not really. He's just an enlightened man. And long story short, they don't so much as worship him, but see him as someone to emulate if you would like to live a good life. The usual advice for coping with pain and suffering is to sweeten up, smooth over, or take a pill. But the distraction only makes you miss opportunities for happiness, when the courage to live in the present can bring clarity and even spiritual change. Pema talks about how she went through some extremely troubling times and had some kind of some reactions to said events that she wasn't exactly proud of. So she wanted to kind of go back to her Buddhist roots and learn as much about kind of centering yourself and staying composed as she possibly could. But through that process, she learned stuff that kind of threw her own ideas kind of on their head. And there's actually quite a lot of similarities between what Pema writes in here and Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. And while Jordan's is a bit more blokey in the way that he speaks and stuff like that, it still hits on a lot of the same ideas that are in here. And one of the main ones is essentially you can drive yourself insane trying to be a control freak, trying to control every aspect of the world around you, and you will just fail miserably. Like, what's the saying that Princess Leia says to Tarkin in the original Star Wars? The more you tighten your grip, the more star systems will slip through your fingers. And reality is a lot like that. The tighter you try and control something, the harder you're going to have to try to control it. And so the more you control one thing, the less things overall that you're going to be able to control. And the reflection of that, or should I say the nuts and bolts of that, is essentially you can't control the universe, but you can control your reaction to it. And it's just about the only thing that you can control, so it might as well be a positive one. But in that, she explores the fact that you're going to fail miserably if your only goal is to be happy and elated all of the time. Because you can't, because it is a fleeting, happiness is an ephemeral thing, and it ebbs and flows. Just the only way that you can find yourself being close to be able to control whether you're happy or not is to be content and not really want anything, and be able to maintain your composure even in bad situations, which is what she's talking about here. Whereas if you're trying to chase happiness all the time, you're going to find yourself constantly. So she has a lot of really, really quotable material in here, and the language with which she speaks, I'm not actually sure whether English is her native language or not, but she speaks with elegant prose. It is very well written, it's very flowery and poetic in its language, which might turn a lot of blokes off actually. You might actually be better off reading Jordan Peterson's material, 12 Rules for Life and Beyond Order. He speaks in a much more kind of less poetic but kind of more instructive manner. But it hits on all the same material as what Pema Chördön talks about here. The other person that Waking Up by Sam Harris has a lot of similarities to this, in that both Pema and Sam talk about, in order to not have so much intrusive thoughts all the time, you have to stop trying to control your thoughts. It's like, what's it say? Don't think of the pink elephant. All right, as soon as you're trying to stop doing something, it's the only thing that you know to do. And essentially, what they're talking about with mindfulness in regards to negative thinking is you've just kind of let thoughts emerge and don't linger on them, don't cling to them, because as soon as you try to stop having a thought, that's the only thing that you'll be able to think about. And by just allowing thoughts to come and go in your own head, and just you're kind of constantly stuck in this loop of thought, emotion. The emotion triggers more thoughts because you start judging yourself for feeling bad about what you thought, when it's just a thing. If you didn't get so worked up over it in that moment, it would just be like I said, your emotions are very ephemeral. So as I said before, Pema kind of examines her own beliefs throughout this book, and quite honestly, I find Buddhism is a brilliant thing for the more atheist among us to get into as far as religion goes, because it's kind of not as restrictive as the Abrahamic religions. All of the Abrahamic religions are kind of almost the polar opposite of Buddhism and its practices. It's heart's in the right place for some bits of it, but she talks about how she views all of the Abrahamic religions as kind of an addiction to hope. And I'd never really thought about it in that way, where it's anti-mindfulness. It's thinking about the next place instead of right here, right now, focused on consciousness in the moment. It's, no, God damn it, there has to be a better place after this. And I kind of dig that way of thinking about it. Like, my logic is, for all this talk of you wanting paradise, you're failing to realise that we could make the here and now into paradise. Maybe it already is. And the hell that the Abrahamic religions speak about is getting to your deathbed and realising that you've wasted your whole life in negative thoughts and nothing worthwhile. So one of those main interesting parts that she hits on, and this ties into what I was saying earlier about the negative thoughts, is people are desperately avoiding discomfort in life, and it manifests mainly as this striving to be constantly happy, when the only way to actually be, I don't want to say happy in life, but content, is to actually stop avoiding things that make you uncomfortable. Again, this will tie in a lot to some of the writings that I've spoken about by Ryan Holiday and his study of the Stoic philosophies, in that if you are constantly running away from difficult things, that you're never actually going to get anywhere worth going in life. And you will be constantly miserable because you're not actually shouldering, as Jordan would say, you're not shouldering your responsibility. And it's only through shouldering the responsibilities and pains of life that you actually grow as a person and find out just how much you can actually take as a person. So there's a short story she tells about the Buddha, and I think it's meant to be on the night that he found enlightenment, in which he was attacked by some demons, and instead of running away, he charged at them face on, and the arrows that these demons shot at him, as they impacted his chest, they turned into flowers. And as a metaphor, I find that particularly beautiful, in that some of the most fulfilling and worthwhile times of my life were born out of some of the darkest depths I ever sank to. Like when my marriage nearly fell apart, and the subsequent rebuilding of that after my addiction issues, it was a cathartic release that cleared my head in a way that I'd never had happen before. And I had kind of learned to live with the pain of the loss of my father when I was very young. And I'd kind of buried that at the back, but getting all that back out to the surface, and like I said, my wife and I treated each other really, really badly. We were both quite shit, to be quite honest, but we rebuilt our marriage from the ground up for our kids, and quite honestly, it's been one of the most worthwhile experiences in my life. A lot of marriages wouldn't have survived what we went through. I kind of have the impression that all of that pain and hurt that we went through was kind of worth it in the end, at least for the kids. It will be. I'm a firm believer that If you have kids with someone, you are never getting that person out of your life, not fully. So it's worthwhile to try and repair things, but there is obviously some lines that if they get crossed, it's very hard to come back after that. But it's not impossible. And no matter what you're going through, whether it be relationship issues or the loss of a job or your addiction issues, if you stop wallowing in your pain and stop trying to run away from feeling bad, you're going to get past those emotions a lot quicker than how you've been doing it if you have been running away. So as I said, she speaks in some very kind of flowery, poetic language. It's not unlike Carl Sagan. A lot of it does come off kind of quasi-religious. As I said, she's coming from this like kind of Buddhism, and she's reiterating the training that she went through herself. And yeah, there's some very beautiful metaphors in here, and I mean, I don't believe in past lives or anything like that, but a lot of this stuff mirrors the way I think and have thought for a long time. There's a quote in here: the only permanence that you'll find in this life is impermanence, and change for nature is in constant flux. So time, as it stands in physics, is a measure of how much things change, or they couldn't change if it wasn't for time. But again, this comes back to what I started with the whole, if you're trying to constantly control everything in your life, you're actually going to have a whole bunch of stuff slip through your fingers, because life is change. And while you can sort of exert some semblance of control on the things around you, it's much better just to kind of take a step back and, what's the word? Allow nature to be its emergent self. So in one of her more kind of nuts and bolts instructive chapters later on in the books, she dictates 3 methods that are traditional in Buddhism for relating to difficult circumstances and awakening the joy that can be found within them. And these are: stop struggling with it. Do or do not. There is no try. The immortal words of Master Yoda. And it sounds retarded, but how can you do something without trying? And it's like, no, you're getting it all backwards. You must commit to something 100% in order to be able to do it. Yes, you will fail, and you will probably fail often, but you never get anywhere if you don't dust yourself off, get back up, keep going. So whatever arises in the mind during your meditation practice, don't fight it. Just allow it to exist like a dandelion on the wind. These aren't my words, by the way. These are the flowery words of the book. But just allow yourself to feel the emotions. Stop judging yourself for feeling something. There is no such thing as a wrong emotion, because it's that you can't help the way you feel. You can rationalize and try and change it after the fact, but that immediate bang, there's a thought, that's how I feel about it. It's like a cascade effect. You can't help it really, but the more you try and control it, the harder it's going to be. Number 2, using poison as medicine. This one is probably a little bit more controversial in regards to negative thoughts, but essentially what it entails is, instead of running away from the negative thoughts, pull it in towards you, focus sharply on it. Look at it, dead in the eyes. Expose yourself to it. And through repeated exposure to that emotion, it can no longer have any power over you. Now, I would not recommend this for immediately after a tragic event. It's probably going to do more damage than it will good. But if you're struggling with some old feelings that haven't gone away, I very highly recommend this. Just think about it, just come straight on and allow your mind to feel the pain that you need to feel, because it's not going anywhere. Number 3. Number 3 is seeing whatever arises as enlightened wisdom. And it kind of ties into what I was saying before, in that allowing yourself to feel what needs to be felt. I mean, there's nothing more natural than our emotions. Like I said, these are chemical reactions cascading through our synapses. You can't really control them to the level that you really wish you could, unfortunately. Even seeing the humour in negativity, it's realising that, okay, you're not in control, as in control of your own mind as what you really think you are. And sometimes the emotion that you're feeling is actually the right emotion you should feel. So stop fighting it. Just believe in the wisdom that emerges out of yourself. That sounds like a really pretentious thing to say, but in the context of what Pema Chördön is saying, it makes a lot of sense. So, one quote that stood out to me, which was in the closing parts of the book, and that is, we create our own situation by how we use our own mind. And while you might not be particularly spiritual, you might be an atheist like myself, there is actually a lot to be found in Buddhist practice as far as learning the emotional stability that mindfulness can bring to you. It's well worth exploring if you're looking to better yourself in any way, shape or form. Whether it's you're already happy with your life and you just want to make yourself a tiny bit better, or you genuinely, your life's gone to shit and you need to pick up all the pieces around you. There is something to be found in this one that it's definitely worth exploring. So guys, it's time to wrap this up. Have you read When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chördön? If you have, I'd love to talk to you about it in the comments below, as well as if you have any other recommendations for any books on mental health or self-development, I would love to hear from you about it. Until next time, I'm Nathan. This has been Walk It Off. Remember, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, get out there and explore the world, go outside, get better, and be awesome. Catch you next time, guys.